The Lord does not cast anyone into hell, spirits cast themselves in. Some people cherish the notion that God turns his face away from people, spurns them, and casts them into hell, and is angry against them because of their evil. Some people even go so far as to think that God punishes people and does them harm. They support this notion from the literal meaning of the word, where things like this are said, not realizing that the spiritual meaning of the word, which makes sense of the letter, is wholly different. So the real doctrine of the Church, which is from the spiritual meaning of the word, teaches something else. It teaches that the Lord never turns his face away from anyone, or spurns anyone, never casts anyone into hell or is angry. Anyone whose mind is enlightened perceives this while reading the word simply from the fact that the Lord is goodness itself, love itself, and mercy itself. Good itself cannot do harm to anyone. Love itself and mercy itself cannot spurn anyone, because this is contrary to mercy and love, and is therefore contrary to the divine nature itself. So people who are thinking with an enlightened mind when they read the word perceive clearly that God never turns away from us, and that because he does not turn away from us, he behaves toward us out of goodness and love and mercy. That is, he wills well toward us, loves us, and has compassion on us. Enlightened minds also see from this that the literal meaning of the word, where things like this are said, has a spiritual meaning concealed within it, a meaning needed to explain expressions that in the letter are adapted to human comprehension, things said in accord with our primary and general conceptions. Enlightened people also see that good and evil are two opposite things, as opposite as heaven and hell, and that everything good is from heaven and everything evil from hell. Further, since the Lord's divine nature constitutes heaven, nothing flows into us from the Lord but what is good, and nothing from hell but what is evil. So the Lord is constantly leading us out of evil and toward good, while hell is constantly leading us into evil. Unless we were in between, we would have neither thought nor intention, much less any freedom or choice. We have all these gifts because of the balance between good and evil. So if the Lord were to turn away and we were left to our own evil, we would no longer be human. We can see from this that the Lord is constantly flowing into every individual with good just as much into the evil person as into the good. The difference is that he is constantly leading evil people away from evil, while he is constantly leading good people toward the good. The reason for this difference lies in us, since we are the ones who accept. We can gather from this that we do evil from hell and good from the Lord. However, since we believe that whatever we do comes from ourselves, the evil we do clings to us as though it were our own. This is why we are at fault for our evil, never the Lord. The evil within us is hell within us, for it makes no difference whether you say evil or hell. Since we are at fault for our evil, it is we, not the Lord, who lead ourselves into hell. The evil within us is hell within us, for it makes no difference whether you say evil or hell. Since we are at fault for our evil, it is we, not the Lord, who lead ourselves into hell. Far from leading us into hell, the Lord frees us from hell to the extent that we do not intend and love to be absorbed in our evil. Our whole volition and love stays with us after death. People who have intended and loved what is evil in the world intend and love what is evil in the other life, and then they no longer allow themselves to be led away from it. This is why people who are absorbed in evil are connected to hell, and actually are there in spirit, and after death they crave above all to be where their evil is. So after death it is we, not the Lord, who cast ourselves into hell. I need to mention how this happens. When we arrive in the other life, we are first taken up by angels who do everything for us, and also tell us about the Lord, heaven, and angelic life, and offer us lessons in what is good and true. However, If we as spirits are the kind of people who have been familiar with things like this in the world, but have denied or rejected them at heart, then after some conversation, we want to get away from them and try to leave. When the angels notice this, they leave us. After spending some time with various other people, we eventually take up with people who are devoted to similar evils. When this happens, we are turning away from the Lord and turning our faces toward the hell we were united to in the world, where people live who are engaged in a similar love of evil. We can see from this that the Lord is leading every spirit toward himself through angels and through an inflow from heaven, but that spirits who are absorbed in evil resist strenuously and virtually tear themselves away from the Lord. They are drawn by their evil, by hell that is, as though it were a rope, and because they are drawn and want to follow because of their love of evil, it follows that they freely cast themselves into hell. This is hard to believe in the world because of people's notions about hell. In fact, it does not even look that way in the other life. It looks different for people who are outside of hell, though not to the people who are actually casting themselves in. They are entering voluntarily, and the ones who are doing so out of a burning desire for evil look as though they were diving in head first. This is why it looks as though they were being thrown into hell by divine power. There will be more on this below. We can now see that the Lord does not throw anyone into hell. We throw ourselves in, not only while we are living in this world, but after death as well, when we arrive among spirits. The reason the Lord cannot treat everyone alike from his divine essence, which is goodness, love, and mercy, is that our evil and false preoccupations stand in the way, not only blunting his divine inflow, but even rejecting it. The reason the Lord cannot treat everyone alike from his divine essence, which is goodness, love, and mercy, is that our evil and false preoccupations stand in the way, not only blunting his divine inflow, but even rejecting it. These evil and false proclivities are like black clouds that stand between the sun and our eyes and deprive us of the clear sunlight. All the while, the sun is trying to dispel the clouds. It is behind them, working away, and in the meantime, a little hazy light does get through to our eyes by various detours. It is much the same in the spiritual world. The sun there is the Lord and divine love. The light there is divine truth. The black clouds there are falsities from evil. The eye there is our ability to discern. To the extent that we are absorbed in malevolent falsity, there is a cloud around us whose blackness and density depends on the level of our evil. We can see from this simile that the Lord's presence with everyone is constant, but that our acceptance varies. Evil spirits are punished severely in the world of spirits to keep them terrified of doing evil. This too seems to come from the Lord, but still no punishment there does come from the Lord. It comes from the evil itself, since an evil is so closely united to its punishment that they cannot be separated. The hellish mob craves and loves nothing more than inflicting harm, especially punishing and torturing. And they do inflict harm and punishment on anyone who is not being protected by the Lord. So when something evil is being done from an evil heart, since this rejects any protection by the Lord, evil spirits assail the evildoer and inflict punishment. To some extent, this can be illustrated by evil deeds and their punishments in the world, where they are also united. The laws here set penalties for each crime, so anyone who plunges into evil is plunging into its punishment as well. The only difference is that in the world, evil can be hidden, which cannot happen in the other life. We can therefore conclude that the Lord does not do harm to anyone. It is like this in the world as well. It is not the king or the judge or the law that is responsible for the punishment of the guilty, because they are not responsible for the evil of the criminal.